TipTut.
Hello everybody and welcome back to TipTut. Today we're starting a new journey inside of Illustrator. We are going to create this nice logo that you see in front of you. It's going to be probably a two-parter series. And if you are fairly au fait with Illustrator, you should be all right. It's all pretty basic techniques, but if not, I'd recommend you go away and watch my intro to Illustrator series. We go over the complete basics there from the ground up, and some of the things that I talk about in this series, we're not going to cover in great detail. Fairly simple though, like I said, just going to use a little bit of golden ratio, a little bit of shape building, a little bit of blending modes, that sort of thing, to recreate this logo here. I imagine this to be sort of a logo for a download manager or something like that. It looks very downloady, but it can be whatever you want. The first thing we do need to do though is set up our color palette. Now I've chosen these 8 colors here. Now how I chose these is I had this core orange here, and I just needed a shadow and 2 highlights for that. Basically, these 2 are going to be our main colors, and then we're going to need a highlight and a shadow, and then we're also going to need a incremented shadow of all of these. Okay, so I'll show you how I created those. If I take these 4 shapes as our base colors that we're happy with and duplicate them, all I did was go up to Edit, Edit Colors, Adjust Color Balance, and then with Preview selected, I just came through and edited these colors until I got something I was happy with, that I thought would look good as a shadow color, maybe something like that. Okay. You can then use these to create swatches along here, and that's nice and simple. You literally just click the shape and hit new swatch. If you've got some there which you have but don't want, you can just select them and delete them, and then you've got only the swatches that you're going to use within this document. The next thing we do need to do, however, is create some gradient swatches from this so that we can use gradients on our logo with a bit more ease, essentially. To do that, it is really simple. All you need to do is have your gradient window open, which if you don't see, you need to go to window and then gradient. And then now that we've created these as swatches, creating gradients from them is very simple. You just need to double click on one of the points within your gradient, go down to your swatches panel and select the gradient that you want. For example, I'm going to choose the lightest color here, which is this one, and I'm going to choose its shadow, which is the first one here, so the 5th one in this row, and we've got a little bit of a gradient. Now, all we do is click this little drop down like so, and hit the Add to Swatches panel, and we have a new gradient swatch. And we just have to do that for each of our color shadings that we've set up here. So 1 and 5, 2 and 6, 3 and 7, and 4 and 8. Pretty simple to do. But what that allows us to have is essentially 8 different gradients, 4 different gradients, 8 different colors for us to use with complete freedom within inside our design. Okay, so we have our 8 base colors and our 4 gradients. Now we are ready to start creating. Okay, I'm just going to shrink this out of the way a little bit. In fact, I'm going to turn it to a grid so I can have it be very small and then make them large thumbnails. Okay. Good, let's get started. The first thing we need is our ellipse tool. Now, if you don't have the ellipse tool showing, you just need to hold down on what's probably the rectangle tool and go to the ellipse. And then holding shift, we can create the main circle for our design. For now, I'm going to leave this on just a black stroke, 1 point in thickness, and take it from there. This needs to be RGB mode. There we go, there's black. 1 point black stroke, just so that we're working with the shapes that we can see. I might make it a bit thinner, actually. Okay, great. Now, for those who don't know, I've got a tutorial on golden ratios, so I'm not going to go through it now. But essentially, the golden ratio is a sizing system that makes the relationship between the sizes of shapes and the composition of shapes inherently nice to look at. All you need to know for now is that scaling wise, it is 1.618 scale. So for example, if I take this original shape and copy it and paste in place with Control C and Control F, and that's just made a duplicate, which is on top of the other, I can come up to my width and height in the properties panel, link them together, and divide this with a / by 1.618. And that gives us a circle that is 1.618ths of the larger one above it. And I'm going to keep doing that a couple of times until I get some shapes that I'm happy to work with. Now, the reason we do this is, like I said, the ratio between the sizes of these shapes is inherently pleasing. You can find this sort of thing all the way throughout history, man-made history, nature, that sort of thing. And if we create a logo with these shapes, theoretically, it looks very nice. Whether it does or not is completely up to you. I think it does help more than just choosing random shape sizes. So now that we have these circles, we're just going to push them off to the side, and we're going to duplicate these to create our logo. So we're going to take our biggest one, Alt-Shift, and drag this along to create our main circle. Okay. Now we're going to take the circle that we want this center portion to be, which I think is probably going to be this size, and we're going to put that intersecting in the center of this circle here. Okay, now there's a lot of finagling around with this bit, so I'm actually going to take all of these shapes with Control X and just paste them on their own layer. Then I can lock this layer underneath, and what that does is it stops me from snapping to these points when dragging things around, which makes it a bit easier. Another thing you want to make sure is not selected just for this logo design is, with nothing selected on the page, go up to your snap options, leave snap to point on, but make sure snap to pixel is off. It gives you a bit of more control when you're lining up points and stops things from sticking out of alignment and that sort of thing. So grab these two shapes and make sure they're perfectly centered on each other. Now, to create these curves, rather than making them with the pen tool by hand, which is a bit cumbersome and a little bit unpredictable, we're going to use our circles that we've created because they're already there. Okay. Now, if you hold Alt and Shift and drag this larger shape along until you intersect with the inside of this smaller shape, as you can see here, intersecting, you'll notice that this curve here looks very similar to this one. Okay, meaning this curve here, you can see it intersects there. It's probably going to be something like that. Yeah, or it intersects with the bottom of that circle. But you can see already that when I shift this up, although it is technically correct and intersecting with the bottom, it's actually intersecting with those other row of shapes over there. So this is where you want to start bringing your shapes around so that there's nothing really they can intersect with apart from themselves. So maybe bring them out of the way just so that you know, for the sake of your sanity, that they're intersecting in the right places. Okay. Now, some of these lines are going to be removed, so you just need to have a little bit of an awareness of what you're trying to keep. So we know that we're trying to keep this sweep here, but it's actually going to go straight up and straight up like so. We're going to keep this sweep here. But then there's also these extra little bits here, which we want to get rid of as well. They're sort of coming out like this. Now that's going to be like so, and that's created by moving this circle over there. Now we're not going to have this sweep stay in, but we need it to create this little triangle. And the reason we need it to create that triangle is because we're going to use this ShapeBuilder tool now to remove all these segments that we don't need. Okay, and you'll quickly see the shape starting to take place. Okay, now to create this little triangle, that's quite easy to do. You can just bring your other shape down here, like so. Okay. Bring them across again, and bring them across again. So they're all equally spaced out, and it gives you a little triangle down the bottom. Now I'm going to see what it's like doing that without it for now, and seeing if there's an easier way to create this. It could just very well be that the easiest way to create it is separately with its own shapes later on. Let's work on this main body for now. Select all the shapes that you need, okay? Come over to your ShapeBuilder tool, which looks like this here, the two circles next to each other. You may be on Live Paint or Live Paint Selection, so make sure you've got ShapeBuilder. And this is a really powerful tool that basically means anywhere where there's shapes overlapping that you have selected, you can add, remove, or combine different segments. For example, I can come in and remove all these outside shapes that I don't need, okay? However, before we do that, one thing I forgot is we're going to get our pen tool or our line segment tool, and we're going to come down to the intersection point of this circle, and we're going to create two lines that go straight up like that. And this is just going to be our two lines that remove this segment here, okay? So let's grab all of this again, and let's use our ShapeBuilder to remove the parts we don't need. Now we know this main circle is going to be our shape, okay? So we can probably get rid of this and this. We can get rid of these bits sticking out, no worries at all. However, now to do that, I was holding down Alt and just dragging over the sections that I know I don't need, okay? Now, when you do that, you'll realize you get these little ears. It makes it kind of look like a little bit of a pig. These little ears are going to be what creates our circle, our triangle section down here. Okay, so we're going to leave those alone for now. However, what we are going to do is we're going to come through and combine all these different shapes. So we want this long sweeping section along here. So we're going to, with nothing selected, we're just going to click and drag until we draw a line through all three of those segments, and that combines them together. Okay, now for this bottom section, we just want to combine these two. Okay, this side section is already one, and because these are going to be removed, we don't have to worry about it for now. So we can come through holding Alt to make a little minus sign. We can come and start removing some of these points. Now, be very careful not to remove these little spikes because we're going to need those for our triangle later on. I mean, we only need one though, so we can actually remove that if we wanted to. And we can merge these two tiny shapes together to create our triangle. Okay, we now need to make sure that we're creating individual shapes for these. For example, if I now move away from here, there's not actually going to be the right shapes that we need until we've selected all of them. Okay, so with all of these remaining shapes selected that we know need to survive, with our ShapeBuilder tool, we now need to just individually click inside each of these, and that generates an actual shape for those lines. So now if I come through and start dragging these around, you'll notice that all of these exist as closed shapes, which is important when it comes to actually filling them later on. Okay, so push those all back into position, and we can take this one here and spin it around and just make sure that it's centered and intersects there with the bottom of our logo. So we're pretty much done. It's a little bit smaller than that one, but that's okay. We can just shimmy it up a bit. And the basic shape of our logo is now complete. So all we need to do is basically color this, and then we're going to work on the shading after that. We can now remove these if we want, but we might need them for later, so we're just going to push them out of the way for now. And we're going to bring all of our different colors over, like so, okay? With everything selected, I'm just going to give them all a single block color, just to check that all our shapes are closed and we can see everything, and to check, which is important in logo design, that our logo looks good as a silhouette. If it looks good and is recognizable as a silhouette, then the job is a good one, okay? We don't actually need this middle bit, we can get rid of it. It might be worthwhile, depending on what background you want it to be, to paint it white rather than transparent if you wanted that to be part of the design. I don't, I'm just going to get rid of it. I've got my little corners down here. Now, I'm going to block these in the basic gradients that we want to keep. So I know that this, I want to be my brightest gradient. Don't worry about the angles for now. This one I want to be our second darkest. This is our third darkest. And this one and the inside ones here are our darkest shapes entirely. Now, because we haven't angled these correctly, it looks a bit rubbish at the moment. What you want to do now is choose where your light source is coming from. Not particularly important for this sort of design, but it could be an issue if you start creating shadows in the wrong place and that sort of thing. I'm going to say that I want the light to be pretty much coming from the top left, like so. So starting up here, okay? So if the light were a cone, it would be coming down like that, with this being the point of origin, okay? With that in mind, I just need to adjust my gradient. So go down to your gradient tool or press G, and you'll notice you'll get a little gradient here that is the color that you have selected. With these, you can actually adjust the colors of the gradient if you wanted to. Or more importantly, you can shift the whole thing around. Or if you click somewhere where this little bar isn't, you can draw yourself a new angle for the gradient. For example, straight up to straight down, which is what I'm going to do. Okay, and I'm going to go through each of these gradients and I'm going to change their direction into the one that I think suits it best. So I think maybe light to dark at this sort of angle works well for this one here. Okay, maybe we can just try straight up to straight down, like so. Keep that theme going. Play around until you get a gradient that you're happy with. Okay, so I'm going to come through and select this one, light to dark. Maybe this one is just going to go straight top down as well. I think top down works for this logo, so I'm going to do that. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't look good to start where the actual top of the shape is if there isn't a large amount of that shape there. So for this one, for example, I'd probably start where the points are and go down to the other point. But for these tiny little bits, that means all of this area is light and the only bit remaining is dark. So you want to offset that a little bit. Now that is the basic shapes of our logo complete. Okay. Now, next time, what we're going to do is take a look at adding in all this shading and highlights here and the shadow in the background, giving it a bit of depth and a little bit of life. Until then, though, feel free to play around with different circles. All I did to create these was just sort of align circles amongst themselves in different patterns until I found a shape that I was happy that when it existed. Play around with it, see what you can come up with. It's a really simple thing to do. It's really quick and it looks pretty good. So it's worth messing around. However, I'll see you next time for the second and final part of this tutorial. And hopefully you'll be back for that. If not, that's fine also. You know, maybe it isn't for you. Hopefully I'll see you then though.
Remember to subscribe for more tips, tricks, and tutorials. Thanks for watching.